Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Christine Carron, writer, productivity expert, and the founder of Good Jelly, where she helps writers build sustainable creative productivity using smart process, grounded power, and inner kindness. And our vision is a world where all writers delight in their creative process. Welcome to the show, Christine.
Thank you so much for having me, Ajay.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India. And I'm sure a lot of people will benefit all across the world. In these times of chat GPT, AI, I'm sure a lot of people want to write original stuff and they want to be productive about it and be creative about what they do. So we'll be talking about how to build sustainable creative productivity. So there are three words in there: sustainable, creative, and productivity. So what is this sustainable creative productivity? Because sustainable, people generally talk about climate change. So and all that other stuff related to it. Creative is much more related to art and all that stuff. And productivity, nowadays everybody wants more to be more productive. And but I'm sure these three things, when put together, it is much more meaningful than we generally what understand these words for. So help us understand first for the audience what exactly is sustainable creative productivity.
So sustainable, even from a environment perspective, means that it will work in the short term, but also in the long term, that you're not going to, in essence, from a personal productivity perspective, just burn out. And there's a lot of what I call maxing mentality in how a lot of people teach productivity. So it's go, 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 and then you're just burnt out, and then you have zero productivity. So that's not the kind of productivity approach that I teach. So it's sustainable so that you can keep repeating it and keep having productivity over time. And then creativity. So you mentioned it's more artists, and absolutely I work with writers, but I also have a long career in software development, project management, and agile methods. And so when I work with project teams, to me, every developer, every QA person, every business analyst, every executive, there is a creativity and an expertise in what they do. And the goal is to be able to release your inherent creativity in a productive way. So you want to be in charge and feeling confident and feeling momentum. So to me, that's what productivity is. And productivity aligned in how you like to work.
Right, aligned to how you want to work. And so if we put this sustainable creativity, creative productivity with writers, then how does it get applicable there?
So one of the things that I work with writers, but I think for anyone, but in particular with writers, there's a big emphasis on you're always supposed to be writing, write every day, or you're not a real writer. But the reality is it takes much more than just writing to ace the writing adventure. So, and there's also an inherent belief that, the writing is so hard. And if you want to be successful and you're never going to make any money and you have to be a starving artist. And so I start with a paradigm shift, and that's that the writing adventure doesn't have to be so hard. And if you take charge of the full scope of your work, there you're hearing my project manager background coming in, the full scope of your work, your process, and your mindset, that's going to make the writing adventure easier. And then the approach I teach is basically a style of agile for artists that my company name is Good Jelly. So the approach I use is called jam, that you're jamming with your writing. And so it just creates ease. And if a writer is going to struggle, I would rather that they're like engaged and in that artistic, delightful struggle with their work instead of messing around with things like organization or how to plan your work. That to me is, let's get that sorted. And then you have more energy and excitement and momentum around the work you actually want to be doing.
Right, right, Christine. So, who is a writer today? Somebody who writes for writing ebooks, somebody who writes wants to create things very quickly, somebody who writes for any other place. Earlier, people used to think writers and or especially authors. If I want to be more specific, they are people who are much more serious about the way they think, the way they write, and it takes quite a bit of time. And they are actual serious people with serious intent of offering something good for the present as well as the next generation. They may not be very rich; only few would get rich, but many would leave something for the humankind for a long time. And when you read those books of the earlier times, you find them so relevant even now.
Mm.
Several of these books have been turned into movies nowadays. I don't know how much it will happen with the writing today itself, because it's much more of immediate consumption of about eyeballs and much more about also earning money. So that is why I asked for the audience exactly who is a writer today. How do you see it from your point of view?
So certainly the writers who come into my program are do want to build a writing career, and they're often more long form writers, so nonfiction or fiction, PhD candidates who are working on their dissertation. But it was interesting, I was teaching one of my advanced jam groups uh, earlier this week, and a woman said that one of the benefits for her from this process is when she started out, there was a lot of inner critic energy going on, and her definition of what a writer was only someone who had a published book. But you're right, Ajay. Writing a book will take a while. And so she said what the process has given her, really focusing on sustainability, really aligning with how she wanted to work, that she now realizes a writer is someone who is engaged in their art, who is doing the work on a daily basis. And that could be putting words on the page. It could be Ajay taking a walk outside and getting new inspiration, but really acknowledging and managing and embracing the full scope of that work and giving yourself credit for it. And so she went from struggling for, well, she will say over 10 years to write her first novel. And she's now just a few weeks away from having her first draft done.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a very different kind of feeling than what
Yes.
you create with, you say, maybe in half an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, by AI writing and all that stuff. That's a separate thing that is happening, but that's a different thing that can be discussed later. But in terms of writing, you talk about the creative adventure part.
Yeah.
So, how does it happen? Because the type of writing that is happening, and people who are putting so much of stuff out in the social media in terms of blogs, newsletters,
Yeah.
and whatnot, because it you can't turn back the clock. The world has
Right.
become like that. So, and there is there's so much of talk about burnout, in terms of
Mm.
content writers and all those people. So how does this creative adventure come into the picture, even for those people who have to churn out a lot of stuff day in and day out, and it's for both ways, even for the daily ones and even for those people who are thinking of writing some good creative stuff.
Yeah, so to me, it's all about one of the main things, in software development, when tech folks or the BA creates the user stories or the task, there's always a definition of done. And I actually teach writers definition of done. And instead of teaching them epics and tasks and stories, I say you want to break down your work into manageable, movable bits. So just focus on that you're clear. I'm going to do this small task. And then the magic comes in when you get what I call a done boost and you actually celebrate. So you described, Ajay, people who are churning out blog posts and maybe they're maybe they're writing on a certain level as they're coding and they're hitting the task and the task and the task. And if you pause to celebrate and give yourself credit and not withhold, I can't celebrate this until the whole version 1 is delivered, but you celebrate on the way, what's going to happen is that's going to infuse more joy, more delight. You mentioned my vision where every writer delights in their creative process. I mean, I would say my vision would be a world where everyone is delighting in their creative process, and delight doesn't just mean joy, and of course that's included, but delight means extreme satisfaction. And for you or me or the writer I was speaking about or a technologist working on a big intensive project, delight is going to mean both confidence, but also feeling like you're getting the stuff done that you want to get done.
Right, absolutely. So you talk about three ingredients of sustainable creative productivity. So help us understand what are these ingredients so that the final output is very good for people who are writers and also for people who are in creative work but may not be writers.
Right. So, and absolutely, I have artists follow me on my blog. I have dog trainers. So this is just solid process productivity.
Right.
Sorry, little delay there.
No problem. No problem. You carry on if you are able to listen to me, and yeah, carry on. You're back.
Are we back? Okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
So the with
No problem. This technology part is this is the technology part. We don't have control over it,
yeah,
so we have control over our good over a good conversation to make it a good conversation, and that is
yeah.
what is happening. Carry on.
So fingers crossed. Process is I have an agile based process, but it's beyond just it's that process around what I said about your work, the process of the way you're getting your work done, and then managing your mindset. And so that creates a structure. What I often say to writers, it creates a solid stage and foundation that your art can dance over. Power is really important. What are your boundaries? How are you really like, do I really have to write like Stephen King? And I think Stephen King would probably say no. I absolutely should mimic them, but my process encourages people to return to what works for them. And then, of course, the inner kindness with writers, but I see it in the corporate world as well. A very strong inner critic happening. And are we back? We
Yeah,
good?
yeah, very
Okay.
very much back. No problem. Don't worry.
Okay. A lot of writers will comment on the kindness part of my method because it seems there's one point in the process where I say, "How have you been kind to yourself in your writing today?" And there's usually like a little nervous giggle where everyone's like, "Oh, I never thought I could be." And so, but kindness really works when you have solid process and you are really grounded in your inner power. And that's why the three ingredients are very synergistic and work together versus just saying, just hunker down and focus on process or just do what you want or just be harsh. That when you have, it's like alchemy.
Right, right. It's nice to hear from somebody who has deep knowledge of process, psychology, and technology. And
Yes.
you talk about things which are not we are related to that, but away from that, and which is for the human being itself.
Yes.
And that's very nice to see that. So let me I understand for the audiences, what is a technology person, somebody who understands psychology, process, is talking about, creative part, about writers. How did this turn happen? I would not say a change, but how did this the right turn happen for the greater good?
All right, let me make sure I'm back. So yeah, I'm a bit eclectic, and I started dancing when I was 4, so creativity has always been part of um my evolution. And on a certain level, it was a little magical. I just followed my interests. And then about, well, I guess 20 years ago now, I stepped away from full-time corporate work and did independent consulting. And at the same time, I would take intensive projects and then take time off to write. And I would observe at writing conferences writers really struggling. And one day I was kind of eavesdropping, Ajay, I will admit to this, but they were talking about they were just really a little bit in despair of how hard the writing adventure was. Of course, they wouldn't have said the word writing adventure, that was my words. And but the thought I had in that moment was, whoa, the writing adventure doesn't have to be so hard, because what they were getting, it was about querying or getting their work organized, or feeling so down about a rejection. And that idea stuck with me. And then 10 years later, I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to want this. I don't know if writers would want to learn process or project management, but hey, it is called the creative process. And so that's when I launched Good Jelly, a little over 2 years ago. And I've been blogging and doing the things as all entrepreneurs do to get the word out and to build the offerings and how I can help people. So it's been very exciting.
Wonderful. And now you are jamming, having a
Yes.
lot of the jam experience. So tell us about this, this small group coaching program of yours, the jam
Yeah.
experience, so that people can know and learn from that.
So, Ajay, I have some hot off the news for you and your audience. So, the Jam experience is the idea I had, my signature program that I launched with. About a year into blogging, I had this idea because I kept thinking, well, how can I really effectively teach this to writers? And then I thought, you know what? Why don't I just do what I do in the corporate world, invite a small set of writers in and say, hey, I'm going to be, I call it your jam leader. I'm going to be your jam leader for the next 7 weeks. I'm going to facilitate your progress just like I facilitate teams in the corporate world. And I will also at the same time teach you all the logic of why we're doing this, the know-how, so you can become your own jam leader. And the results have been fantastic. It's a high intense program. And so I kept having writers say, is there some other way we can get this? So I am launching a new program called the Jam Straight.
Okay,
And
that's great.
and it's a membership program for writers where it's an annual membership, and we just weave it in on a little less intensive perspective, and you get a large community of writers all committed to sustainable creative productivity. So it's kind of exciting, since I know you have a lot of business people and entrepreneurs as well in your audience, that I'm launching this to my list, and the offer is going to go live on Monday on my social media on Instagram. But why I decided to offer the Jam Straight is because I really wanted to make it more available to a wider set of writers, where perhaps the higher higher touch, really intensive program just wouldn't work for them. So I'm excited about this new program.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, how do people get access to this program? What's the way to signing in?
So
And in case you can share those details, also, I'll be happy to use add them to the YouTube description.
so this is so new that all I have going on right now is a special like email sequence to my list. But if someone hears this and wants to email me at hellogoodjelly.com before Monday, I will absolutely get, the information to them. And then you will see it on Instagram. My main social channel is Instagram at League of Good Jelly. And then on Monday, a page will go up on www.goodjelly.com and you can find it there. And yeah, just come let me know what you're thinking. If you're a writer or if you have questions about productivity, I love the shift when people move into confidence and they move into momentum and they move into delight with the authentic expression of their creativity. It's joyful.
It's joyful, indeed, indeed. And in fact, I would like to understand the name of your company. Good Jelly is quite very good. Even kids would like to hear this. That the name of the company is Jelly. So, what does it actually mean, and how did it actually come to your mind? It's almost like very consumable.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for just I love hearing that response, Ajay. So this again, I may be interesting to your audience that I was in Seth Godin's marketing seminar, and that is a very intensive program and where you're doing 4 lessons a week, and it's also a large group of people going through this experience. And there was a lesson one day, and Ajay, I thought in that lesson he asked us to do a strategic vision board of the company of
Okay.
like of the and I was thought, has he lost his mind in one day? In the corporate world, these kind of like visioning sessions take 2 weeks, a month. But I was like, okay, I'm up for it. And I did this. I mean, I took the day, I went in, I came up with, what were my nicknames? What do I enjoy doing? And at the end of this process, I came up with this name, Good Jelly. It just, I won't walk you through that intensive day process. But and then I was like, no way will that URL be available. And then it was. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And the meaning behind it is exactly your reaction to it. Because I mean, let's be real. Even in the corporate world, a lot of folks are not super psyched when the project manager comes in and like we have to lock things down. And so even in the corporate world, I'm like a little bit different energy of a project manager. And so what I wanted, since I was talking about process and project management, I wanted an immediate surprise of something that just people smile when they hear the name of my
Yes.
company. And so it creates an opening where I get to say, if process is bringing your energy down, if it's tanking your creativity, if it's tanking your productivity, then I got to tell you, that's not smart process. Smart process should be unleashing your creativity, unleashing your productivity, and just go momentum, not the other way around. And so, yeah. And then it just has become so playful with jam and the jam straight. And, my kind of sign off is let's go, let's good jelly.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's fun to talk about, not just business, creative productivity on this sunny afternoon here, evening, and now it's going to be evening. So, in this evening, you talk about jelly, you talk about jam, and you talk about Jam Street, the jam experience. And also this also means, all the work that you do is, that people work for bread and butter, and here they will be also working for bread, butter, and jam, some good jam in their lives with all this great, creative adventure and productivity.
Okay,
So
AJ, hearts for that. No one has ever said that one to me, but that's brilliant.
thank you. So on this note, with this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so
Thank you.
much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.